Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. We are live right now on this 18th day of May in the year 2021. It is 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you happen to be on this planet and care about such things, and we are talking about system noise tonight. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Very interesting day here. Last 24 hours or so, we had a storm roll in, a lot of wind, a lot of rain. I stayed outside through most of it. And I see that Louisa is here. Hello, Louisa. Nice to see you. Much love to you too. And speaking of that, much love to all of you. I do love you. You are part of me, and I am part of you, and we are part of that one. And each of you is an expression of that one, a one of a kind filter looking back upon creation, helping to inform God about itself. And in that is your growth and evolution, blah, blah, blah. And it's perfect. And understand that perfection is not static, as nothing in life is static. Nothing in all of creation is static. Perfection is an ever-evolving state, and every moment you are in is a perfect moment. So one of the things that I'm gonna do, and I've just kind of decided at the drop of a hat to start this evening, and that is to include a brief reminder before we get down to the topic of the discussion, and that reminder is going to be something to hopefully help you in your progress, in your own awakening. And, there was an interesting post that came up either early this morning or yesterday. I really can't tell anymore. And that post was saying that, to subsume oneself to a guru what was a sin, and the arrogance to believe yourself, to have some sort of spiritual knowledge worth passing on was also a sin. And I would agree with that on a number of levels. My interpretation and my experience with the guru-student relationship has always been one of equality, one of the guru relaying his or her experience, that which they have garnered through their experience, their wisdom, and offering that up to the student, not for some sort of blind acceptance and blind faith. And believe me, I've seen that in religion far too often. Not at all. But to enliven the student to explore for themselves those same deeper recesses of being. To plumb the depths of what it means to be conscious and aware in this universe, but never to take it as the idea that the guru is somehow more than you, because there is truly no such thing. We are all equal. We are all that same essence, that same being, that same loving creative consciousness. There was no one born before or born after. There are no wiser souls and not so wise souls. There are really not even any souls, ultimately. There is but one soul expressing itself in myriad apparent form. And each of those apparent forms is worthy, is loved, is cared for, and is never ever lost. Okay, so let's get on to the actual video tonight. And the video tonight is about system noise. And when I'm talking about system noise, this is a term that has been used in numerous applications, of course, and we're not talking about physical noise, as in, waves through a medium. We're talking about the noise of our internal systems. And this system noise exists at various levels within our systems, physical systems. I know it's going to sound confusing at first, but really, it's not. So let's take a look for a minute at one of those systems. And one of those systems could be called the family system. And let's just use an example. And the reason why we're doing this is that there is a propensity for far too many people to be far too hard on themselves and beat themselves up for some of their behaviors, some of their struggles or things that they struggle with. And they feel at times that no matter how much consciously they're geared towards, eradicating that behavior, that it's still popping up, still being a problem, and it becomes frustrating. And then, and this is something that Kelly used to go through quite a lot. She used to get very frustrated with herself. And it was always about what she was supposed to be instead of what she was right now. And it took me a couple of years to get that out of her. So let's look at the system noise that can be generated by that family segment of this system, okay? So let's assume, just for sake of argument, as an example, that you're raised in a family that is very deeply religious, as Kelly was. Not quite, like totally fundamental. But definitely heading into that space, that same sort of idea that there was only the one way. You were either on the highway to heaven or you were on the highway to hell. And I always thought personally that I might as well take the highway to hell if that was the case, because all my friends and most of the people I knew were going to be on that highway. And if we were going to go down, we were going to have fun on the way. So within that dynamic, there is this underlying system noise that's been created in the children of that family. So in Kelly's case, as her viewpoint began to shift, as her point of view began to change, as she began to question and open herself ever so slowly, ever so carefully, but in its own perfection, that system noise, even though she has moved beyond that consciously and truly believes otherwise and knows that in her deepest heart, there is still this occasional resurgence of that system noise, that programmed behavior at the family level. Getting into her head that if she's not accepting Jesus Christ as the one and only Savior, that she's doomed to hell. And from time to time, it will come up, it will bubble up. And a lot of times it follows the same old pattern. Did I make a mistake in turning away from what I used to think was my faith, or standing for my own self? Was that not the right thing to do? This is all part of that system noise. And we're going to go through a number of examples on a number of levels. And the reason we're doing this is to make sure that everyone understands that the system noise isn't part of you. It's part of that egoic cloud. And we've talked about that egoic cloud of humanity. And it's a misconception to think of that ego as your ego. It's not. It's the egoic energy of humanity. And we are transmitter receivers, and we flavor it with our experience. It's like a stream that we receive, but it's all coming from that one source. And where your family predominantly was within that one source, and the energy that was being brought in, and the stream that was being received and broadcast out, is going to have a residual effect, but it doesn't belong to you. And that's why it's important that we look at various levels of this, so we can, let people know that they can release the idea that there's something wrong with them when they can't move past that. What's really happened is they've, awares or unawares, moved their transmitter receiver, moved their antenna back into that space again. And it doesn't take much to trigger it. It can be a momentary jump into the past, looking at a similar situation. Something that you refuse to let go of yet, something that you haven't resolved with yourself. And oftentimes, if you are finding that that's happening, that is really an indication that you need to look at that event in your past and come to terms with it from the knowledge of your new level of consciousness, where you are right now, and then let it go. See it as it truly is. See it as the gift to your existence that it was. This system noise manifests itself at the societal level, within communities and within society as a whole, whether that society is a town or a province or a state or a country. Whatever this society is, there is also a societal level of noise that gets imbued upon the individuated consciousnesses, i.e. us, everyone around us. And we must be aware enough, we must remain aware, or maintain a level of awareness here in the present moment, to see that system noise for what it is. And I'm going to give you another example of that system noise that occurred to one of our members. And one of our members is retired and has taken on working part-time at a dollar store, just for a little bit of extra cash to help make ends meet, make things a little bit easier. And she has some dear friends who are really quite wonderful people, and would never think less of someone based on their position. And yet, they were shocked to see her working in a dollar store, as if a dollar store was beneath her in some way. And when this story was relayed to me, I said, just to point out, there's nothing wrong working in a dollar store. And of course, these people are not that type of people. They're not the type of people who look down upon another person. From my understanding is they're quite decent people. But that is part of that societal noise. Whenever we get bombarded by anything over and over and over again, even if it's contrary to our own values, our own belief systems, if we are not remaining present, we run the risk of that societal noise drowning us out, where we are subsumed within that noise and we begin to reverberate and spit that noise out again, to perpetrate that noise further and further. So we've looked at the idea of where it happens at a societal level, for example, with the idea of homelessness or working in a store that doesn't lend itself to be, a place. I don't even understand that, to be quite honest with you, where people get that at all. And I think it's really worth pointing out that if you look into the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna makes it clear that even though it's called the bottom of society, it's not the bottom because it's less. It's the bottom because it's the necessary foundation upon which the entire structure of society is built. Those who serve others in our society are the foundation. And you know what happens when you don't have a good, strong foundation. So this level of societal noise, this level of familial noise, there is also the level of noise created within the workplace. There's the level of system noise created in the idea wrapped up of the feminine and of the masculine. And a lot of these around race. It's amazing to see how easy it is for people to revert to an old pattern of behavior that was once acceptable, that's no longer acceptable. And I know these people. They have not a bone within them that would ever look upon another person as less than them because of the color of their skin or the way they appear. And yet, that system noise is still occurring at some level. So how do we get around system noise? And the first thing we need to do, and the first thing we need to recognize, is this system noise is not a fault issue. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what I'm trying to do in this process of talking about system noise. Excuse me for a moment. Is to remove the concept from you that you're somehow to blame or necessarily even responsible outside of maintaining present moment awareness for those instances where this system noise takes over. Now, the way around this is clear. The obvious and first way around this system noise is to be always willing to affirm with yourself in equal measure the degree to which you are receiving the noise. And an example of this would be you work in a stressful job for 8 hours a day, and then you come home and you do anything and everything, but the last thing you do, and you don't do it before you finally fall to sleep, is take time to care for your inner state of being. When you don't do that sort of thing, when you allow yourself to succumb to states where you're overtired, overworked, overstressed, where your health levels are dropping because you're not eating properly and healthily, the system noise begins to get louder. And you will become more and more unconscious as more and more of your attention becomes focused on the noise. And that's exactly how we fall into states of depression. That's how we fall into these states of despair, into states of anger. We must truly want that present moment state of being. I've often put it that you really want to be like a person in a dark room. There's a very small keyhole somewhere in the room, and there's a key somewhere in the room. And you're moving with awareness through the room in the dark, looking for the key. And that's your life. Your life is asking you to pay very close attention. And that can really seem like work at first. But what it will create is a space between that systemic noise response and what you truly have become, what you are right now. So in those moments where we lose ourselves to that system noise, where we fall into the old patterns that have resonated so deep with us, within us, due to our society or our family or our workplace, you must make the time for yourself to, for one, not blame yourself. To understand that your only responsibility in this is to become more and more present. Because in the stillness, in that quietness, you recognize the system noise. You recognize the underlying patterns that are still driving parts of your life and your perceptions. The most crucial place that this system noise exists, of course, is within our own minds, and it has to do with what we tell ourselves, and a lot of that is based upon what we've absorbed, what we've been programmed with, what we've accepted in. So how do we differentiate when there seems to be a lot of noise going on? What we need to do is to be willing to look upon our own mind self, our own egoic self. And when I'm saying this, of course, I'm speaking of our conception that it's individuated. And hold every thought to be highly suspect if it's not feeling really good to have the thought. Now, this comes up a lot, and I'm going to use the example of anxiety. And I believe that I made a post regarding that. So let's say that the underlying system noise of your life, the programming and interactions with your family, the programming and interactions with your society, perhaps in your school life or in your work life, have brought you a place where at an egoic level, you are very anxious about interacting with others. That level of system noise has grown to the point where it's overpowering the level of present state, present moment awareness that you possess. So there's a direct correlation between the volume of the system noise and our awareness. The more present we become, the lower the system noise. The less aware we are, living in the past, living in the future, not accepting the present moment as it is right now, that system noise begins to grow in volume. And when it reaches a certain crescendo, we would call that anxiety or a fit of anger or extreme depression. Any one of the far swings of the pendulum of human feelings. And of course, these are brought about by our mental state, by the thought processes, by the system noise if we are not careful. And then, worst of all, we like to beat ourselves up. And what we're not really understanding is the underlying system noise in our lack of awareness has created the ground state of thoughts, and they're predominantly negative, and we're going to call them negative only because they generate a feeling in the body that we interpret as negative. We don't want that feeling, i.e. sadness, anger, depression, a sense of hopelessness, whatever the case may be. All of these things begin in a lack of awareness and in the realm of that system noise. So what is the message here tonight? Well, the message here tonight is to first forgive yourself, because in truth there's nothing to forgive for any of the experiences that you have where you find yourself succumbing to that system noise. It's perfectly okay. As a matter of fact, it's quite perfect. Accepting yourself where you are right now is the surest way to cut that system noise off, like turning off a switch. To be fully present right now, to be fully involved and fully open to whatever life is bringing you right now. So if you exist in a state of anxiety, I want you to forgive yourself, to understand that there's really nothing to forgive, and then to take upon yourself the idea of engaging in practices that help to bring you to a place of centeredness, to allow yourself to open to the possibility that no matter what's happening right now, it's absolutely perfect for you. And even though that system noise seems to be drowning out the tiny voice of who you are, the more you strain to hear it, the more you pay it close attention, the more it will grow in volume, and you'll notice that that system noise begins to fall away. Now, that doesn't mean that those old patterns won't resurface. They will when they're triggered. And to be perfectly frank, they will never ever go away. What you're really releasing is your opinion of the experience. That's what you're erasing. You're not erasing the experience. The experience was a valuable creation and a necessary part of your life, and you're going to take it back across the veil, if you will, with you when you die. What you're letting go of, what creates the dissonant energy within our being, what creates that system noise within us, is our opinion about the experience, the idea of what should or should not have been. Now, a lot of people have argued with me bitterly that accepting all of our experiences, well, you know, what if you're addicted to drugs? What if you're, you know, if any of those things that we view as negative. You know, Kelly just finished a book where a young woman was imprisoned. She was taken hostage and held for a very long time. And the woman's growth and evolution through her experience, well, let's just say by the end of the book, she looks upon her captors with compassion and with gratitude. She learned to, it totally and fundamentally changed her being. And yet, to so many people, it would be judged as a terrible experience to have. The idea that some experiences are good and some experiences are bad is a human egoic concept. All experiences simply are. In every minute, free of that system noise, you are able to choose honestly for yourself, to choose how you're going to view your experiences, to choose how you're going to react, or whether you're going to create a new action instead. As another one of our group members who made a post on it today, Janet Lynn Bure, she had an amazing experience with a gentleman in a store, having a moment of that connection, making that attachment again. That's how you lower the volume on that system. And the last tried and true way, and of course this is simply from my old impish self, is to pretty much do the opposite to whatever the vast majority of society says. In other words, to try to live as freely and honestly with yourself. To question any thought processes you have about yourself or about your situation that don't feel good. To be wary of that system noise and always be willing to ask yourself whether your choice is being made out of the clearest possible space. Or are you already partially drowned out in all the ideas of everyone else, or all the concepts of this society, or all the concepts of your family members? You see, you are not here to relive and repeat anyone else's existence. Your gift, your responsibility, if you will, is to understand that you are a totally unique expression of consciousness in the universe. You're here to become that which you choose to be. And your growth and your evolution is just as precious, just as valuable, just as needed as every other expression of consciousness in all of creation. That's it, that's all. Much love to you tonight. Namaste. Have a beautiful Tuesday night. We're looking forward to a week of rain here, even though it's taking us away from the kayaking. We need the water so much. So much of the prairies are in drought condition already, and water is in short supply. I would invite you all to remember that around so much of the world right now, there's been an enormous equivalent to a third level hurricane, a level 3 hurricane, I guess, a typhoon in India. We have the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians right now, and the Israelis have an awfully big stick. Around the world right now, there are so many people who need our prayers, our goodwill. One of the other beautiful ways that you can free yourself from that system noise is to turn your attention to all the perceived others in the world, to wrap your arms around them in love and support them even if it's only in the conscious expression of your love to them. That's it. That's all. Have a beautiful night. We'll speak again very soon. Namaste.